I sat in the lawyer's office as the will was read. My name never came up. That's everything, he said. But then I saw a bank record and my name was still. James Brown didn't rush. He read every line like it mattered, like each word was final. His voice was steady, controlled, almost detached. Sophia Clark sat beside me, completely composed. Hands folded. Back straight. No shaking. No hesitation. Like she'd already accepted everything before we even walked in. Her son, Noah Johnson, barely looked up. Just a quick glance when his name was mentioned, then back to his phone like it wasn't a big deal. And I sat there, waiting. Waiting for something that never came. The house in Naperville went to Sophia. The accounts, the savings, everything tied neatly to her name. Noah got a trust. Not huge, but enough to matter. Then silence. I remember thinking maybe I missed it. Maybe there was another page. Maybe James would clear his throat and say, and to his daughter. But he didn't. He closed the folder and said, that's everything. Everything. That word landed heavier than anything else in that room. I didn't react. I just nodded once, slow, controlled. Like I understood. Like it made sense. Because part of me already believed it. Things between me and my dad, Daniel Clark, had been off for years. Not a fight. Not something loud or obvious. Just distance that kept growing without either of us saying anything about it. Before Sophia, it was simple. We lived in Denver. Small routines. Quiet nights. Nothing dramatic, but it felt solid. After he moved to Illinois, everything changed. Calls got shorter. Visits became occasional. Conversations felt careful. Like we were both choosing what not to say. And eventually, we just stopped trying as much. So hearing my name not come up in that will, it didn't feel like a mistake. It felt like something that had been building for a long time. James looked at me. Do you have any questions? I shook my head. No. I'm okay. And I meant it. At least in that moment. Because reacting there would have changed something. And I didn't want to give them that. A week later, I went back to the house in Naperville. I told myself it was just to grab a few things. Nothing important. Just whatever I left behind. But pulling into that driveway felt wrong. Like I was showing up somewhere I wasn't supposed to be anymore. The front door opened before I knocked. Sophia stood there, already dressed, already put together. Like she had somewhere to be. Emily, she said. Hey. There was a pause. Not awkward. Just empty. You can take whatever you need, she added. Your dad would have wanted that. Would have. I nodded and stepped inside. The house felt lighter. Cleaner. Too clean. My dad's chair in the living room was gone. The one he used every night. The one no one else ever sat in. Replaced. That hit harder than I expected. I'll just be upstairs, I said. Of course, she replied, already turning away. I watched her for a second longer than I should have. Then I went up. His office door was half open. Inside, it still felt like him. Not fully erased yet. Papers still on the desk. A pen sitting slightly off-center. A stack of unopened mail. It looked like someone had just stepped out for a minute. I started gathering things slowly. Not rushing. A notebook. A watch I hadn't seen in years. Small things that didn't matter to anyone else. I wasn't looking for anything. At least, that's what I thought. Until I opened the bottom drawer. There was a folder pushed all the way to the back. No label. Just there. I almost closed the drawer. For a second, I actually did. Because part of me thought, don't do this. Whatever's done is done. Don't go digging for something that's already been decided. But something didn't feel right. Not emotionally. Logically. So I opened it again. Pulled the folder out. And sat down. Inside were documents. Not organized. Not prepared. Just stacked together like they were meant to stay hidden. Bank statements. Property records. Insurance papers. At first, it didn't make sense. Then I saw it. My name. Emily Clark. I froze. Flipped to another page. There it was again. And again. Different documents. Same name. Mine. My chest tightened, but not from panic. From confusion. Because none of this had been mentioned. Not in that office. Not by the lawyer. Not by Sophia. I checked the dates. Recent. Some of them just months old. Not closed. Not old. Active. That's when something shifted. Not emotionally. Mentally. Because if this was still active, then it wasn't forgotten. It was ignored. Or left out. I sat there longer than I should have, going through the same pages again and again like they might explain themselves. They didn't. I heard movement downstairs. Sophia. Cabinets opening. Closing. Normal sounds. Like nothing had changed. Like everything was already hers. I closed the folder slowly. And that's when something else hit me. Not anger. Not yet. Just a question. If my name was still on these, then why didn't anyone say anything? I stood up, holding the folder. Walked downstairs. Sophia looked at me from the kitchen. Find everything you needed, she asked. Her voice was calm. Too calm. I studied her for a second. Long enough that she noticed. Yeah, I said. She smiled slightly. Good. And that was it. No hesitation. No curiosity. No question about what I was holding. That was the moment something felt off. Not obvious, but enough. Because if she didn't know, she would have asked. And if she did know, then she expected me not to. I didn't say anything. I just picked up my box, kept the folder with me, and walked out. No confrontation. No questions. Nothing. But the silence between us felt different now. Like something had shifted, and only I knew it. When I got back to my apartment in Chicago, I didn't open the folder again. I set it on the table. And just stared at it. Because for the first time since the will was read, something didn't feel final anymore. And I wasn't sure if that was a good thing, or the beginning of something worse. I didn't open the folder that night. I told myself I needed sleep. That I was overthinking it. That there was probably a simple explanation I just wasn't seeing yet. But the truth was, I didn't trust myself to look at it calmly. Because something about the way Sophia didn't react stayed with me. The next morning, I left for work like everything was normal. Same routine. Same commute through downtown Chicago. Same office, same desk, same emails waiting for me. I sat through meetings, nodded at things people said, even answered a few questions. But I couldn't focus. Because in the back of my mind, I kept seeing that folder. And more specifically, I kept seeing her face. Too calm. Too controlled. Like nothing in that house could surprise her anymore. By the time I got home, I already knew I wasn't going to ignore it. I dropped my bag, walked straight to the table, and opened the folder again. This time, I didn't just flip through it. I studied it. Slow. Careful. Piece by piece. I spread everything out: bank statements, property documents, insurance papers, organizing them into separate stacks. And that's when it started making sense. Not everything, but enough. The accounts weren't random. They were connected. Same institutions. Same time frames. Some of them had been open for years. And my name, it wasn't just appearing. It was placed there. Joint holder on one account. Secondary name on another. Listed contact on investment records. Not everything, but enough that it couldn't be accidental. I leaned back in my chair and just stared at it. Because now the question wasn't, what is this? It was, why wasn't this mentioned? I picked up one of the bank statements again and checked the date. 3 months ago. Active. I grabbed my phone before I could talk myself out of it and dialed the number printed on the statement. It rang twice. Thank you for calling. This is Olivia. How can I help you? Her voice was calm. Routine. For a second, I almost hung up. Instead, I said, "Hi, I just need to confirm some information on an account." "Of course. Can I have your name?" "Emily Clark." Typing on the other end. "Okay, Miss Clark. What account are you referring to?" I read off the number. More typing. Then a pause. "Yes, I see the account." My grip tightened on the phone. "Is it still active?" "Yes, it is." My chest felt tight. "And, am I listed on it?" Another pause. Longer this time. Then she said, "Yes. You are listed as a joint account holder." Everything in me went still. Because that meant it wasn't old. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't something that had already been handled. It was still there. Still active. Still tied to me. I forced my voice to stay steady. "Okay, thank you. Is there anything else I can help you with?" "No. That's all." I hung up and just sat there. That was the moment everything shifted. Because now I knew one thing for sure. What I found wasn't leftover. It was current. I went back to the documents, more focused now. The property record stood out next. A small piece of land in Arizona. Nothing impressive at first glance. But my name was listed there too. Not as the main owner. But not absent either. Then the insurance policy. Same pattern. Not primary. But included. It was like I existed in the background of everything. Not important enough to mention. But not removed either. And that didn't make sense. Because if my dad had wanted me completely out, he could have done that. Clean. Final. But he didn't. Which meant something else was going on. I sat back, rubbing my temples, thinking through every possible explanation. Maybe my dad forgot. No, he wasn't that careless. Maybe the lawyer missed it. No, that didn't feel right either. And then my mind went back to Sophia. The way she stood in the kitchen. The way she didn't even look at the folder. The way she didn't ask what I was holding. That wasn't normal. Anyone would have asked. Unless they already knew what was in it. That thought hit harder than anything else. Because if she knew, then she assumed I wouldn't. And that changed everything. Not emotionally. Strategically. Because if no one thought I knew, then I had time. I didn't need to confront her. Not yet. I didn't need to accuse or question anything. Because the moment I did, everything would shift. People would start explaining, defending, covering. And I didn't want that. Not yet. I wanted clarity first. So I made a decision. Quiet. Simple. I wasn't going to say anything. I was going to look deeper. Understand everything. Before anyone even realized I had a reason to, I closed the folder slowly. Not because I was done, but because I was thinking. And for the first time since that was read, I wasn't reacting anymore. I was planning. Because now it wasn't about being left out. It was about something else entirely. Something no one expected me to notice. And I had a feeling, if I handled this right, I wouldn't need to ask anyone for anything. I would just take what was already mine. I didn't wait long after that. Not because I was in a rush. Because I knew the longer I sat on it, the more likely I'd second-guess everything. So I went back to the one place where everything had felt final. James Brown's office. Same building. Same quiet hallway. Same door that felt heavier than it should. But this time, I wasn't walking in confused. I was walking in with questions. He looked up when I stepped inside, clearly not expecting me. "Emily," he said. "I wasn't expecting you back so soon. I just need clarification on something," I said. He nodded. "Of course." I sat down across from him, same chair, same desk, same exact place where my name had been erased like it didn't exist. But it didn't feel the same anymore. I placed one document on the desk. A copy of the bank statement. He glanced at it, then looked back at me. "This account," I said. "It's active. My name is on it." He leaned forward slightly, reading it more carefully. I didn't say anything else. I just watched him. There was a small shift in his expression. Not dramatic. Just enough to tell me he understood what I was asking. "I see," he said. "None of this was mentioned in the will," I added. "That's correct." He said it too easily. Like it wasn't even a question. "Why?" I asked. He folded his hands, choosing his words carefully. "Because this account isn't part of the estate I was retained to handle." I held his gaze. "Explain that." "Not all assets are governed by a will," he said. "Some accounts, particularly those structured jointly or with designated ownership, pass outside of probate. They don't get included in estate distribution." I let that sit for a second. "So this wasn't included because it doesn't go through the will." "Exactly." I leaned back slightly. Because suddenly, everything that felt final wasn't. "There are more," I said, placing the rest of the documents on his desk. "Investments. Property. Insurance." He reviewed them one by one, slower this time. "Yes," he said. "These appear to fall under the same category." So legally, I paused. "These aren't hers." "If your name is listed as a joint holder or designated party," he said, "then no. They are not solely part of her inheritance." That was it. Simple. Clear. No emotion attached to it at all. I nodded slowly. "Were these overlooked?" I asked. He hesitated. "Just for a second." "I can only speak to the documents I was provided," he said. "These were not included in the estate file." That told me everything I needed to know. Either my dad never brought them up, or someone chose not to. I didn't push further. Because I didn't need to. When I stood up to leave, he added, "If you intend to act on this, I recommend doing so carefully." I paused at the door. Carefully how? Without creating unnecessary conflict. I almost smiled. Because that was exactly what I was going to do. I didn't go home right away. I sat in my car in the parking garage, hands resting on the steering wheel, staring at nothing. Because now it wasn't confusion anymore. It was a decision. Before, I thought I had been left with nothing. Now I knew that wasn't true. Now I knew I had a choice. I could walk away. Leave everything as it was. Keep the peace. Let Sophia believe everything had already been settled. Or, I could take control of what was already tied to me. Quietly. Legally. Without asking. I thought about that day in the kitchen. The way she looked at me. The way she didn't ask about the folder. And, for the first time, I felt something sharper than confusion. Not anger. Something colder. Because if she knew those assets existed, then she assumed I wouldn't notice. And if she didn't know, then everything I was about to do would come as a surprise. Either way, I didn't need to explain anything. I started small. I called the bank again. This time, I didn't just confirm. I verified access. Answered security questions. Updated contact details. Everything went through. No resistance. No complications. Like I had always been part of it. Because technically, I had. From there, I moved carefully. One account at a time. Transferring what I legally could. Separating what needed to be separated. Documenting everything. Making sure every step was clean. Quiet. Weeks passed. Nothing happened. No calls. No messages. No questions. Which told me one thing. No one was watching. Or no one realized they needed to. And that made it easier. By the time I was done, nothing about my life looked different on the outside. Same apartment. Same job. Same routine. But internally, something had shifted. Not victory. Not satisfaction. Just balance. Like something that had been quietly taken. Had been quietly returned. I saw Sophia again once. It wasn't planned. I stopped by the house one afternoon to pick up the last few things I had left behind. She was in the kitchen again. Same place. Same calm expression. Emily, she said. I didn't expect you. I'm just grabbing a few things, I said. She nodded. Of course. There was a pause. Then she said, everything's been settled. I looked at her. Really looked this time. And I couldn't tell if that was a statement. Or a test. Yeah, I said. It has. She held my gaze for a second longer than before. Like, she was trying to read something. Then she smiled. Small. Controlled. Good. That was it. No questions. No suspicion. Nothing. And in that moment, I realized something. Either she truly didn't know, or she knew exactly what she was doing and chose not to push it further. I'll probably never know which. Now it's been a few months. Everything that had my name on it is under my control. Legally. Quietly. No arguments. No confrontations. Just done. And the strange part is, it doesn't feel like winning. It feels like something else. Like I stepped into a version of the truth that was always there. And no one expected me to see it. I still think about that day in the lawyer's office. How easy it was to accept being erased. How close I came to walking away without ever questioning it. That part stays with me. Because it makes me wonder. How much of life is decided for us? Just because we don't look closely enough. I haven't said anything to Sophia. I don't know if I ever will. Because nothing I did was wrong. But it also wasn't something I shared. And maybe that's the part that sits with me the most. Not guilt. Not regret. Just awareness. I wasn't in the will. But I wasn't left out either. And I took what was already mine. Without telling her. I wasn't in the will. But I wasn't erased either. I just let them believe I was.